Well, folks, welcome to one more edition of Politics and Random. Egberto Will is your host. Thank you so kind of for being a part of the show. We are going to have a great show for you today. Hello, Bruce Pollard says it's hump day already. I know it's going really quick. Bridge MCP is in the house. She says, hi all. How you doing, Bridge MCP? Melanie Keelan, second time I'm seeing you for the day. She is in the house from Barcelona, Spain, as well as E2247. Hello, relatives. He says, Eric Hayes is as well in the house. How you doing, Eric? As well as AVQ, the one and only Michael Rudnin. Let's go ahead and get started real quickly. ABC News from Michael Rudnin. ABC News, Trump indicted. Who are the co-conspirators based on information in the indictment and publicly available information? 5 of the conspirators have been identified by ABC News to likely be the following individuals. Number 1, Rudy Giuliani. Number 2, Johnny Smith. Number 3, Sidney Powell. Number 4, Jeffrey Clark. Number 5, Kenneth Chesebro. Number 6, unknown. Newsweek says co-conspirator 6 has been proven more difficult to identify, and some social media users speculate that it could be Jeannie Thomas, a conservative activist and wife of Supreme Court Justice Associate Justice Clarence Thomas. Despite speculation surrounding Thomas, it is not possible to know with any certainty who co-conspirator number 6 is. That would be a blast. What I'm saying, that would be crazy. Bridge MCP says, I said more on the 5th myth because it is spoken about more here. House hearing used misinformation to continue pushing anti-trans agenda. The hearing relied on misrepresenting studies and many blatantly false claims by representatives. January 29, 2023. You will have to read to see why. Myth number 1, the Swedish study and 19 times suicide rates. Myth number 2, allowing trans youth to get gender-affirming care is like allowing them to eat too much ice cream. Myth number 3, Washington State will take away kids and trans them. Myth number 4, being trans is socially contagious. Myth number 5, trans kids are put on fast track to surgery. Republicans have been known to claim that little kids are undergoing gender reassignment surgery in hearings. However, this myth is far from reality. Gender reassignment surgery, typically referred to as bottom surgery, is a procedure primarily performed on adults, with only exceedingly rare exceptions involving minors. Numerous studies and organizations have confirmed that gender reassignment surgery is not happening among transgender youth. Top surgery refers to the group of surgeries that transgender people, both binary and non-binary, use to reshape their chests. This is in contrast to bottom surgery, which is used to reshape the genitalia. You know what? It's so funny. The people that you see objecting to these kinds of things and being anti-trans and all of that are generally the evangelicals, religious folks, etc. Well, there's a study done, and I put this out on that it's being run right now, that shows most of our sex offenders, the people that you must take care with your kids, the ones who harm kids, are generally in the religious realm. So here these religious people are trying to take the rights away from people having whatever trans care they need, but at the same, and claiming that somehow this has to do with protecting the kids. Yet when we look on a per capita basis, pastors and religious workers are the ones that harm the kids, not by a little, but by a bunch. It is amazing, the hypocrisy. Eric Hayes says, Egberto, question, why would DOJ stop at 40 indictments? I'm sure they can make up 5 more for a total of 45, 44, 45th. That way Orange Boogeyman can gloat. I know they'll just do what they have to do, sir. Lee Grant is in the house. Welcome, Lee Grant. E2247 says, protection of civilians and mitigation of civilian harm are both a moral necessity and a strategic imperative that in liberal democracies rest on peace transfer, etc. All right, let me go ahead and play the first video. The first video has to do with Donald Trump. For those who haven't seen what he's done, let's go ahead and play that right now, and then we'll take it on the other side. Well, it has happened. The former president of the United States, Donald Trump, the criminal in chief, has finally been indicted for attempting to overthrow the United States of America. Check this out.
Good evening. Today, an indictment was unsealed, charging Donald J. Trump with conspiring to defraud the United States, conspiring to disenfranchise voters, and conspiring and attempting to obstruct an official proceeding. The indictment was issued by a grand jury of citizens here in the District of Columbia, and it sets forth the crimes charged in detail. I encourage everyone to read it in full. The attack on our nation's capital on January 6th, 2021, was an unprecedented assault on the seat of American democracy. As described in the indictment, it was fueled by lies. Lies by the defendant targeted at obstructing a bedrock function of the U.S. government, the nation's process of collecting, counting, and certifying the results of the presidential election. The men and women of law enforcement who defended the U.S. Capitol on January 6th are heroes. They are patriots and they are the very best of us. They did not just defend a building or the people sheltering in it. They put their lives on the line to defend who we are as a country and as a people. They defended the very institutions and principles that define the United States. Since the attack on our Capitol, the Department of Justice has remained committed to ensuring accountability for those criminally responsible for what happened that day. This case is brought consistent with that commitment, and our investigation of other individuals continues. In this case, my office will seek a speedy trial so that our evidence can be tested in court and judged by a jury of citizens. In the meantime, I must emphasize that the indictment is only an allegation and that the defendant must be presumed innocent until proven guilty beyond a reasonable doubt in a court of law. I would like to thank the members of the Federal Bureau of Investigation who are working on this investigation with my office, as well as the many career prosecutors and law enforcement agents from around the country who have worked on previous January 6th investigations. These women and men are public servants of the very highest order, and it is a privilege to work alongside them. Thank you.
Now let's make sure justice is done and put this guy where he belongs. In jail for this particular crime, but I tell you, he should have been in jail a long time ago for the litany of crimes that he has committed throughout his lifetime. And you know, Eric, for all that you're saying, doesn't it really bother you what Donald Trump did? Does it not bother you that this guy tried to overthrow the government? Does it not bother you that this guy's caused telling people to come to Washington, it's going to be a blast? Doesn't it bother you that 5 police officers indirectly and directly got killed with this insurrection? Does it not bother you that this guy actually couldn't accept that he lost when over 60 judges for every time they attempted to say there was somehow voter fraud, etc. It was voted down again by judges appointed by Trump, by judges appointed by Bush, by judges appointed by everybody, pointed out this guy was lying. Does it not bother you? And you know, I speak to some of that in the speech that I gave at the UU Church that I think I'm going to play in a minute. But my question again is, how can it not bother you? How can you be so into this guy's immorality, this guy's dishonesty, this guy's corruption, and you not say anything about it? I mean, doesn't that tell you something about who? Well, I'm not going to go there. Anyhow, let me continue before I get too excited by those people who allow Donald Trump to really destroy our nation. Michael Rodney says, Eric Hayes, Banana Republic would be if we let politics dictate or delay avoiding prosecution for major crimes. If Trump manages to delay his prosecution until after the election, to where conservatives are not told the truth about the Trump and his conspirators have done, and Trump somehow wins the election despite this popularity falling below critical levels before Trump started rallying against overturning the 2020 election, our nation would become the very banana republic you're decrying, as Trump would pardon himself and cause a constitutional crisis. If by some insanity Trump's reelection happens, it would be the last time our votes would be counted. I tell you what, we would continue to be the laughingstock that he has the possibility of even winning. Makes us a laughingstock throughout the country. It is simply astounding. Bridge MCP says people need to pay attention, especially Republicans, not MAGA. Don't think they can read. MAGA is problematic. I would continue to try to engage them. I will continue to try to engage them. But it's sad that they have left many a times their thinking, their critical thinking to God knows what, right? Eric says, Egberto, Clinton and Abrams were against elections too. It doesn't matter. Did they ever contest an election? Did Gore, even though Gore beat Bush in order to save the country, what did Gore do again? Politics is dictated now, and you might just be giving him more power. No, it's not. We're not giving him more power. You are. If more people like you, if more people were like you, I tell you what would happen. If people like you were to contest Trump, the people that follow you would probably start to change because anyway, let's go ahead and give. This weekend, I gave a speech at the Unitary Universalist Church on civility. Good afternoon, Shiva Las Vegas. And what I want to do is I want to play that for you, and you guys tell me what you think about it. Some of the things you guys have already heard, some of it you might not have heard, but it was an invitation that I got to speak there, and I really enjoyed every minute or not. But before I go, Eric says, Egberto, I could care less if he wins or not, but the current situation is bad too. Punto finale. Please try to spell punto final correctly. It is punto, P-U-N-T-O. Final is F-I-N-A-L. Panko Run says, Eric Hayes never seen this poll, huh? Most people around the world were laughing at us while Bush and Trump were in office, but respect recovered when Obama and Biden were in office. One off for the screen. And you know what? Because I actually want to see that myself, so I am going to copy that link and get that link on the screen, because I think the bad thing about it is Republicans like to live in their own lies too often. And I like when we go ahead and pull it out. Okay, you can see that on the screen right now. And what you're seeing on the screen is Western European confidence in U.S. president surges as Biden enters office. And you can see the same thing that had occurred under Obama as well. You take a look at under Obama, you take a look at under Biden, you take a look at under Bush, you take a look at under Trump. These are not up for debate. This is something that we've known for a long time. Republican politicians, the ones that we've recently elected, they left a whole lot to be desired. Thank you for that graph. It's well worth the look. Senor Rudman, thank you for that graph. I think it's Rudman who gave us the graph. But anyhow, what we're going to go do now is we're going to go to the speech that I gave. Lee Grant says, whatever crimes Trump committed, the political aspect is inescapable. This is third world stuff. Yes, it sure is. What he does is third world stuff. Egberto Breach has another one okay, let me see what Breach has out there. Let me go ahead and put that one on the screen, because if Breach says, let's go do it, I say, let's go do it. So I copy the link and put it in there for Breach. And here we go. And I'll put it there. All right. Let me go ahead and put that link on the screen that Breach has. And this has to do with transgender youth. Trump faces several lawsuits in the run-up to the 2024 election. And remember what Trump said. He said that Hillary Clinton should not be even running for president, because with all the indictments that are likely to come, she couldn't serve well. Maybe he should take his own advice and drop out of the race, right? But I doubt that he will. We know that he won't. So let's go ahead and move on. Anyway, thank you very much for that, Bridge MCP. We are going to go ahead and go with the speech that I gave at the UU Church now, and then we'll come back and continue the conversation.
Thank you, man. Good morning, everybody. How's everybody doing today? First of all, I want to thank Harold for giving me this great invitation. And as I look around the room, I see a whole lot of people that I know. Thank you guys for being here. Anyhow, a little bit about myself, first of all. I'm originally from Central America, Panama, you know, that little peninsula, all the way in Central America. And when I grew up, one of the big things about the United States is that all of us one of our dreams was to come to the United States, and we just kind of loved it. It was one of the dreams that many people had. Not everybody could get here. A lot of folks got here. Now, I remember my grandfather, I think it was on a merchant ship or something, how he got to New York, and he would come back to Panama and visit. And I remember one time I picked up his shoes, right? And I said, imagine this stuff walked in New York. That's the kind of reverence that people used to have for the United States all over the world. And to some extent, people still have the idea of what the United States is supposed to be. It never was, but it's the idea of what it was supposed to be. Now, I moved over here. I got a degree in mechanical engineering, but I can tell you one thing. I was always an activist. From back in school, in high school, always a rebel rouser. Came over here, did the same thing at the University of Texas. I was out there with the Green Beret on and marching for the University of Texas to get out of South Africa because South Africa was an apartheid country, etc. Those were what I call the radical days, the radical times. But as I grew older, I figured out that if we did things the same way that we always did, we didn't get the results. After all, look at America today. How much different is it than it was many years back? So I took a different tactic. I remember, first of all, as I said, I'm an engineer. As such, what I believe in are simply numbers and formulas. Everything should follow a number, everything should follow a formula. You do that, and everything works out fine. Today I got an example that doesn't matter, even as I came to the church and had some nice discussions with people, friendly discussions, and one realizes that it's not good enough to be right. It's not good enough to know what you think you know. It's only good enough if you can have somebody trust you, and after they trust you, start listening to you. In other words, it doesn't matter how right you are. If you doubt it, visit MAGA. MAGA today believes what they believe, irrespective of whatever is out there. So one of the things that I like to follow as I grew older was this theory of civility. And civility doesn't mean giving up your own morals. Civility doesn't mean giving up the things that you truly believe in. But civility also means communicating. So back, I don't know if you remember in the 2008 period when Obama got elected and he attempted to get the Affordable Care Act passed, Obamacare, the violence that occurred in the country, mental violence, physical violence, and all that sort of thing that occurred in the country. And I remember thinking in those times, wow, this country is going to explode, things are going really bad, etc., etc., etc. And as a person who really stays on the internet 24/7, seeing this little young lady come on and she wanted to form something called the Coffee Party USA. It wasn't really in response to the Tea Party, but it was the Coffee Party USA, the idea to bring civility into our communication. Have a cup of coffee with somebody. If you have a cup of coffee with somebody, if you're talking to somebody, you can't be doing what? You can't be fighting them. If you like somebody, even if you disagree with them, you disagree with your wife, you disagree with your sister, your brother, and everybody else, but you know what? You still love them, you still have conversations with them. So I said, that sort of appealed to me then. One of the things that we know about the way our minds work is it's not necessarily always rational. Many times the way our minds work is our own belief systems. In the discussion that I had in that little room back there, I watched 4 different belief systems at once working against what some would believe are factual basis of information, etc. And that's just how the world works. You may believe something, but it's not necessarily right. But until you have trust in that which tells you otherwise, that will never change. I mean, that is the reason why if you look at our current politics with Donald Trump, who is a bona fide someone who knows very little, he still garners the attention of many others. Engineers, lawyers, doctors follow this guy. They all, deep inside, they know better, but they follow him. So when I joined the Coffee Party and became a board member of the Coffee Party, the idea was, how do we form narratives? Or how do we get people to coalesce around something that would allow us to communicate? And that is what we started out building during the 10-year span that we still exist, but not as we did before, the 10-year span. And one of the things that we started to speak about was, first of all, be the media. Be the media. Be that objective group that isn't paid for. By the way, as a member, as a host of a radio show at KPFT, by the way, every morning, 6 in the mornings, you can tune into KPFT and listen to the program Politics Done Right, which is the one that I host. One of the things that we came about there is, if you are the media, if you are the person given information, if you can get folks to have faith in you, or not necessarily have faith in the religious form, but you can earn their respect, you can actually start to effect change. And that is the sort of stuff that we did at the Coffee Party USA. That is the sort of stuff that I'm trying to do on Politics Done Right at KPFT. One of the things that I realize most of all is we don't think in numbers and formulas the way I think of as an engineer. If I want to be able to communicate with others, who has to change? Me, right? If I want to communicate with any one of you, what do I have to do? If I don't find that method of communicating, I got to change. I got to figure out how can I get you to have trust in me to start listening to what I have to say compared to what your beliefs are. And that is what's the most difficult thing for any human being to do. Because again, we always think we're right. We always want to be comfortable. We don't necessarily want to think critically if it's going to affect the beliefs that we have, the things that we were taught. After all, we are the best country. After all, we are the good ones. After all, we wouldn't do bad things. Well, I tell you something. Humility is very important, right? Once to be able to talk to folks, in my humble opinion, you first have to be able to talk to yourself, look at yourself, and tell yourself, I got to change. I've got to be able to listen. I've got to be able to do. And personally, that is what I did. Let me see. I want to make sure that what time did I start? I want to make sure that my timing is good. 20 minutes. Okay, good. One has to change. Now, when I came to the United States, like I said, I'm from a Latin American country, and I always say that I suffered from these 3 strikes, right? In this country, sexism is bad, homophobia is bad. All those bad things I came to this country with. And in the process of being here and learning and allowing myself to change, they were all extricated from myself. Why do I like to tell that story? Because I also tell a lot of the story about all the other isms that we suffer from, the racism, these are the isms. But it's hard for many times for us to tell these stories if we are coming as the arbiters of good against all the arbiters of bad. if one can within themselves point out that we as human beings all have our isms, not to make the isms equal, but we do have our isms and can change from our isms, then we can actually change the world, right? Now, it is easier said than done, and all the things that I talk about on the radio, that I write about, etc. One of the things that I try to do is I try to first test it out on whom? On me. I try to make sure, how would I feel if somebody tells me this? How would I feel if somebody tells me that? How would I react, and what would I do about it? And understand that I had to change what I actually believed, and not only what I actually believe, but how I actually partake that to others. One of the things that I learned as well is that we don't, like I said, don't speak in formulas and equations and all these other things. We actually speak in stories. And with that, I think maybe how many stories? About 4 quick stories that I like to talk about in how working in being civil actually makes change. I told you the coffee party story as far as how I got involved with the coffee party and how we worked together to talk about talking to people civilly to actually effect change. In other words, we reached just about every spectrum of America for the changes every spectrum of America to talk about the political issues that were going on back in 2010, 2011, 12, etc. And we actually had some good successes in these groups. But I want to talk about an exact one. I live in Kingwood, Texas. Probably the reddest area in this county. And I've written 5 books, but 3 of them political. Well, 3.5 of them political. And I would sit in that Starbucks and write and write and write. And there are people that would come in there and they see me there all of the time. And some folks would get the nerve up to say, "What are you doing here? Don't you work? Don't you," that sort of a thing, right? But yeah, I'm working, I'm writing, right? So there's this woman. She had the great nerve that she's going to sit down and have a chat with me. A Kingwood white woman, she's going to sit down there and she's going to talk to me. And she sat down and, "What do you do?" And I told her about that I write books and that I'm into healthcare and all this stuff. And said, "Oh, good." And then why did I mention healthcare? She was into healthcare and she hated Obamacare and all these things. And I sit down and I listen. One of the things that I like to talk about is the most important thing that people like, all of us, is not only for people to hear us, but for people to listen to us. In other words, to understand that I am not waiting to answer, I'm not waiting to come back to whatever you tell me. I am actually going to listen to you, absorb what you've said, and analyze what you've said. That's important. Why is that important? Because if I don't do that, I simply assume I'm right. But can I be wrong? Yeah, you bet your life I could. So every time, and it's a learning process because we all think we know. So I try to do that. So she's talking about healthcare, and she hated Obamacare, but she doesn't have Obamacare. She has a great corporate insurance, and she started to talk about the things that she liked about it and what she didn't like about it, etc. So I made a scenario, and I started asking her questions. I didn't tell her anything. I asked her, "Wouldn't it be nice if health insurance did this?" "Yeah, that's what it should do." "Wouldn't it be nice if health insurance did that?" "Yeah, that would be great." And I'm talking about things like universal health care, all these great things I'm asking her, right? And I'm feeling guilty now because everybody in Kingwood's conservative. Well, 70% of people in Kingwood are conservative. At my Starbucks, just about everybody's conservative. And you may have conservatives in here as well, I don't know. But everybody was conservative. And, so I'm describing to her what I think healthcare should look like, or rather, she's describing to me based on my leading questions what health insurance should look like. Great. I'm starting to feel guilty now because it's like, this woman is in the palm of my hands. And it's like, she doesn't know I'm probably the most left-wing liberal in Kingwood there is. So much so that they firebombed my house before, right? No kidding. So I looked at her and I said, ma'am, I just want you to know that what you just described is actually not even Obamacare, but Medicare for all. And she looked at me like, no, not really. Really? Yeah, that's what you described. And then we continued with the conversation, and I felt even more guilty because I know this woman thinks, I'm just this black conservative in Kingwood, and that's why she felt so comfortable talking to me. So I said, ma'am, let me just tell you something. I'm likely the most liberal left-wing person you would ever know in your life. And the woman turned red and she looked me straight in the eye and she said, but you are so nice. And then I looked at her and I said, I know we don't all have horns, we don't have horns. But the reason I give this story, anybody who listens to me on the radio and hear this story all the time, the reason I give this story is not about being nice or anything like that. It's to see the perception and why the perception, the lack of civility that you see on Fox News, to some extent the lack of civility that you see other places, that is the genesis of it all. The genesis of the lack of civility that you have among people is what's been portrayed on us. Because again, she is sitting down there, and what she is seeing, as soon she was okay with me all along. Even when I told her what she was okay. But as soon as I was a liberal, a progressive, as soon as that came out, it was like, but you don't fit the profile. Right? None of us fit the profile. None of us fit any profile. The thing about it is we are all individuals in that regard. But again, the system, I always talk about our economic system, and this is not one of my economic speeches or anything like that, but I just want to kind of dub on it a little bit. Our economic system depends on us being at each other's throats. Our economic system depends on racism. Racism is a function, a necessary part of our economic system. Sexism is a necessary part of our economic system. Anybody wants to understand that some other time, please listen to my radio show on that one, because it's too intense to get into that. But I want folks to understand that we are all puppets in this game. The lack of civility, all that sort of stuff, we are being puppeteered. When we talk about rugged individualism, we want to be rugged individual. We want to be independent of anything. We want to, even some of us liberals will go ahead and elect some crazy neoliberal folks under the pretext that we are individuals and we want more of these things. We want to have more control. We all need each other, period. Period. Nobody, when you drive out of this, when you drive out of this place, as soon as you leave this building, the amount of people that you are dependent on for your success, for getting along, very few of us are willing to accept. The amount of people that makes us what we are. I always tell the story as well, how did I'm a businessman, okay? I had a software company and that, mechanical engineer with a software company, doing great, all of that. And I remember one night sitting down and watching all the crap that was going on back in the day, during the political time, and I said, somebody needs to do something about this. This was back before 2010. Somebody needs to do something about that. And I remember one night, just in the dark of my home office, saying, I'm always talking. If somebody got to do about it, you better throw yourself in the game, because somebody got to be you too. And notice I said you too, because somebody has to be all of us, right? In some form, some fashion, some way. And at the time, business was going great. My daughter was about to leave to college, so I didn't have to hide anymore. I used to blog as a, you know what pseudonyms are, right? When I would write letters to the editor, I would write articles and that sort of stuff with not in my name because my daughter went to Kingwood High School. And I didn't want her to have to suffer for what her dad did. But as soon as 2009 came and she was out of there, at that point, I started writing the articles in the newspapers and writing the books in my name, et cetera, because at that point it was like, so what are they going to do? You know, nothing can happen. But again, it was about having to do something to make the change. Now, I kept that up. I used my little, before the pandemic that is, I used my little Starbucks hole to really try to do what I try to tell folks we all have to do, and that is talk, earn the trust of people. I don't like to use the word educate because it sounds a little bit too presumptuous, but I like to use the word inform or something. Inform the people that you talk to. I'll be in a grocery store and I hear a Kingwood grocery store and I would hear some silly comment and I would nicely walk up to the lady or the guy or whatever and say, actually, no, that's not what happened, or that's not how it is. And they'll turn around startled and like, who are you? Well, I just overheard. I'm sorry, I just overheard what you're saying and make the change. And you'd be amazed at some of the things you hear in a grocery store, you know? Amazed that you'd be amazed at who your neighbors are sometimes when you listen to these things. I remember being in the Starbucks one time, and this guy was very anti-immigrant, and and he said to me, you know those immigrants X, Y, and Z? And I'm like, well, you know you're talking to an immigrant, right? And by the way, you are an immigrant too. You just came a few hundred years or so earlier, but you're an immigrant too. But we kept on talking. And every time he sees my license plate there, he'll come into Starbucks and he'd just want the challenge and he'd want the talk. So we'd always talk about immigration. And I'll give him the example as to why we can't live without immigrants. And I made this, he was going to be soon to be on Social Security, I believe, and I gave him the Social Security story relative to immigrants because, we're holding up the Social Security system. And he didn't believe me, of course, but he listened. And he went home and did his research. And he came back to Starbucks one time and he slapped me in the back. And he said, "You're going to like me now." I'm like, "What are you talking about?" He said, "I'm for immigration." Okay, but I want to do it the Republican way. Okay, said, why don't you write me up a blog and I'll post it on my site? I will post it under a pseudonym because I know you don't want these folks in Kingwood to know you for immigration now. And then he's like, no, you can put my name on it. And the guy wrote a blog post on immigration the Republican way. But the thing about it is, it wasn't exactly what I would want, but it's a start, right? I mean, it is something like, oh, communication actually works. This is a dude who hated immigrants. This is a dude who wanted nothing to do with immigration, but we were able to show that, and this is the selfish part about us a lot of times, right? We're able to show that, no, immigrants are good for you. Now, his empathetic part didn't kick in for immigration. His pocketbook kicked in for immigration. And so when I talk about talking and earning people's trust, we are one country, and none of us are leaving the country. None of us are leaving the country. So whatever we have to do to get to effect change is something that we need to do. The last story, Daniel Boone. Everybody, Daniel Boone was a man. Remember those days? Well, the Tea Party there's a Daniel Boone family, father, grandfather, great-grandfather in this stuff. So I used to do these pieces for CNN iReports. So I would be on CNN about 2 or 3 times a week doing these things called iReports, and they'll play my stuff on air all the time. So this group in Katy, they saw something that I did, I don't remember on what subject, And they got to CNN, they contacted me to go to meet with them, right? So it was a family, Daniel Boone, his family, and they came out there, and it was during the Obama days, and they wanted to talk about healthcare, whatever. This Tea Party group, I had never been treated as well as these guys. They wanted to show me that everything that we spoke about them, that they were not racist, that they were good people, and they just wanted to lift themselves up by the bootstrap. The son didn't have health insurance, the father didn't have health insurance, the grandfather didn't have health insurance, and we sat down and we talked, and I let them tell me their stories, and I asked them, do you have health insurance? No. So what is it that Obama is doing that you don't want again? And we went through the whole story. By the end of the discussion, they maybe we need to rethink what we're thinking about health insurance. And then I noticed something with that talk that I got at the Tea Party, and also the media. If anybody remember what the media concentrated on during that time, it was the grandmother being thrown off the hill, death panels, and all these other issues. Nobody really tried to sit down from a standpoint of how it would affect individual families to have the health care in the manner that Obama was doing, a manner that I didn't agree with. I wanted something different, but it's all we had at the time. Nobody, but when you sat down and you first listened, earned their trust, speak to them with respect, not speak to them with what you perceive they are, but speak with them with a certain level of respect. Suddenly, their minds were open to listen. So grandfather, son, and great-grandfather, grandfather, father, and son was four of them. They were then willing to, take it under advisement. And that is all that we can ask for, communication. And the only way we can communicate is to be civil with each other and try to, I don't care what anybody here believes. I don't care if you are a racist, a sexist, or anything. It won't stop me from talking to you. I don't care who you are. If I feel that I can make a difference, not just for you or for me, but society at large, I'm willing to do whatever it takes. And I think everybody won't do that, but enough of us can do that to make a difference in our society. If enough of us start to think a little bit less about self and a little bit more about what can we do in the aggregate, I'm pretty sure we can make a change. And I think I came under my 20 minutes. Thank you very much.
All right, folks, I hope you enjoyed that. Thank you, Breach, for the kudos. Hey, by the way, Breach, I like how you did the ladies at the grocery store where you tell them, I woke up this morning, so I'm aware. I love that. I love that. E2247, thank you for the kudos as well. He says, Egberto rightly began the address by citing the U.S. as an idea. We can, if we want to be taken seriously, we have to quote the United States as an idea, because as implemented, we have a lot to go. There's a lot that happened that was very evil during our inception. And there's a lot that continues to happen. When you accept America as an ideals, then one can say we have something to work towards. Because when I'm sitting back in Panama or other people are around the world, America is the best salesperson of America. America sells America like it is this wonderful place where you can be whatever you want to be. It doesn't go into the idiosyncrasies, right? So I like, whenever I'm selling America, I am selling it as an idea, and it is something that we can come here and make a change. With respect to Ledo and others that says, yeah, I've heard this story 100 times. I have audiences all over, right? In other words, that UU audience never heard the story, and I think it's an important story, those stories that I told. My regulars from the PDR posse, I ask you to continue to endure the things that you already heard. But do remember that every day we have a new set of people coming in, and every day these podcasts go out. There's a new group that sees a podcast. So what is repetitious to my regulars are not repetitious to those new people. But one of the things that I try to do is interspace the repetition with some new stuff. As you have heard in that speech, there's quite a few new things as well. Eric Hayes says, will Egberto bring up his morning person named Brian, the person that one of my favorite MAGA folks that call into the show in the morning? I love the guy. The guy gives me a chance to explain a whole lot of things, and I do that very well. And the emails that I get makes it clear that we're doing a good job in what we're doing out there. So thank you for bringing him up, El Señor Eric Hayes. Don't forget, this weekend we're going to have Ask Egberto Anything at 11 Central Time. Go to politicsdoneright.com/Ask Egberto, politicsdoneright.com/Ask Egberto, and sign up. Of course, it's free. Go ahead and sign up for Ask Egberto Anything. I'm about to put that link on the screen right now. I would love to see as many people as possible there. Just go there, sign up, and it'll send you the Zoom link for our every time we do that. Michael Rodden says, Breach, I was expecting one of these responses: border security, legal immigration, and deportations. Oh, Rodden, too long for me to read that one right this minute. But anyhow, don't forget, folks, please go ahead and sign up for the thing. Daniel says, I find it interesting that he has no new stories. He used the same stories from years ago. Why? Because it is rare he gets someone to agree with his Marxist ideology. Not really. I have a lot of stories. I print them all the time. It's just that those are the ones that are in my book. Okay, Ledo. You go to my blogs, my daily blogs. I had 3 news stories from right-wingers blogged and videoed on my blog today. Go to egbertowillies.com. You can see it there. Egberto, not a problem. It was for Breach and the conservatives in the chat, not necessarily to read out. Thank you, my brother Rednan. So yeah, Mr. Ledo. No, I have a lot of news stories, and the stories are constant. And I blog about the stories, and I play the stories in video. In fact, I played yesterday 2 of them as well. So no, it's constantly coming. Egberto, mind reading this one out? What is the Republican way to immigration? The Republican way to immigration is to charge money. It's to charge money and make sure that as you come in, you pay your way somehow, right? As if the immigrants don't pay their way. But did you have something else you wanted me to say about Republican immigration? I'll be happy to say so, but I'll see if I can find the blog. Eric, because they have no evidence. I think you're talking about what they want you to talk about, which is Biden, Hunter Biden, Hunter Biden, Hunter Biden. We don't need to do that. I won't touch Hunter Biden. I won't touch the 2 Trump kids and the billions that they got. And the reason why I don't have evidence, nor does it make your life materially better. I hope that the things that we talk about here will, in fact, make your lives materially better. Let's see what else I missed from anybody. Para ver. Let's see. U.S. has always been an idea. That came from El Señor E2247. Breed says, my response, be Trump and marry an immigrant. Ha, ha, ha. That is funny. Let's see what else we got here. Michael says, no, I was hoping to hear from the conservatives as an answer to the question. Oh, guys, answer the question. What would be Republican immigration? That's a question coming from Michael Rudnin. Bridge MCP, my response, be Trump and marry on. I think I read that one. And then mention / repeat what I already wrote in the long skipped comment. Thank you, brother. Anyhow, folks, we are coming close to the end of the program. We have about 8 more minutes. Give me some comments. What else do you want me to talk about? Did you enjoy the 2 videos today? Is there anything else that we want to talk about before we close this baby down? It's all yours. It is your program, as we've always say. Eric says, replying to Bridge MCP, total BS, but I guess if you smash servers and whitewash phones, guess what is okay? Actually, I find it interesting what you say, but let's go ahead and bring in one of our callers here. Come on in, caller. How are you doing today?
Hello, mi hermano.
Hey, hermano mío, ¿cómo estás? How you doing, Ray?
Oh man, I've been trying. I'm not gonna lie. It's been a rough day for me waking up, but I figured I'd listen to your morning show. So I had some feedback I wanted to share.
Please let me hear it.
Yeah. So I was just gonna first of all say finally they indicted Trump for trying to steal the election. That was the indictment that really needed to happen.
Agreed.
Now, on top of that, you had a caller named Joe.
Yes.
And I remember you begged and pleaded, and I'm glad Joe called.
Yes.
Because you wanted to know, who are these people that support Donald Trump?
Right.
And Joe, to his chagrin, even you were surprised, even though I don't agree at all with his answer, it was logical.
Right. That's
I
what I
will
told
say,
him.
in my own opinion,
yes.
In my own opinion, I'm just going to say your opinion is very stupid and counterproductive to what this country was built on. Mm-hmm. But okay, that's what you believe in. You basically want to vote for somebody who's going to make everybody upset so that we can get something done. I will say I agree with Joe on one thing. When Donald Trump was in office, it did fire up progressives. It did make us get on top of things. I will agree to one thing. When there is a Democrat in office, it seems like people get complacent and they don't feel like they have a part in what they're supposed to be doing as far as civic duty. But when a Republican gets in, then, that's when they feel like their lives are turned upside down. Now we need to do something about it. And they're more willing to listen. But I feel like we shouldn't have to have a madman, who is the second coming of the apocalypse in office for people who to realize that, hey, yeah, I think I am a progressive. No, you shouldn't have known that whether a progressive is in office, which I don't know when we're going to get one of those. You should know that you're a progressive when a right-wing zealot is in office. You should know you're a progressive no matter who is in office. Exactly. But that's the thing. Joe was right about that one thing. When somebody like Trump, who has no idea what the heck he's doing, is there, it does make it easier to mobilize people because they see what happens when you don't have a functioning government.
I agree with you 100%, and I agree with you 100%. Let me tell you why I really am going to go have some coffee with Joe as well, because Joe is a logical thinker notice what I said to him. His base was wrong. And if you start your base, if you're building from a base of misinformation, right, and you construct your story based on that base of misinformation, I can see how we got there. And if you notice, I also put some blame on our neoliberal Democrats. And the reason why is I said, how do you seed rural areas to these people, right? How do you seed it? Because the rural folks need us more than anything else. I gave another talk. I don't remember where it was that I gave the talk. And I said to them, I hate that what we continuously do over and over and over again is not whenever a hospital is closed in rural areas, whenever different things happen in these different areas, that we don't go out there with a whole bunch of citizens, with a whole bunch of Democrats and say, courtesy of your Republican representatives' policies. There are things that we can actually do because, again, when people are polled, they want the things that we are offering. The problem is the narrative that Joe was built on, right? Allowed him to create a completely different story, a plausible story, but completely nonsensical, as you mentioned earlier. Ray.
Yeah, it's like, why do you want to support somebody just because they're opposite of what the right? It's like, what's the saying? If you knew better, you do better. And he knows better, but he chooses to do the absolute opposite. And the sad thing is, he's probably one of the few people that's willing to admit it, but there's what we say 43% of people out there who agree with him. And you know what? Y'all need to come out and start showing y'all stupidity so we can start talking to y'all more often and saying, well, why does that make sense to you? Because I'm going to keep asking over and over and over again, like, how does that make sense? Things were so difficult when he was in office, and I just don't understand why would anybody want to go back to that.
Let me tell you, Ray, what is very powerful, right, is the art, and this you can find in the Powell memo, and you can find in other literature that the right wing uses, right? The power of repetition. You see, elitists, or in general, let's say progressives and Democrats, they would tell you a story or they'll tell you something and it'll end there. I watched Fox News last night. I wanted to see how they were going to interpret Donald Trump's indictment. They talked about Donald Trump's indictment for a very short period of time, and then everything that they talked about was Hunter Biden and the telephone calls that Hunter Biden made to his father while he was talking to these different oligarchs, etc. And they kept it was repeated over and over again, and they spent the entire hour talking about these issues. And what happens then is I sit down and I listen when I hear that, and then it comes into our space. A lot of our good right wingers that visit us every day, they are picking up on that same notion that you have out there with repetition, 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 repetition. We think we are we find ourselves too honorable to do that, but it is something that we have to grow out of. We have to go where the people are. And I think that is in rural areas, we have to go where they are. In the barrios, the ghettos, and Appalachia, we got to go where they are. In the suburbs, the exurbs, we got to go where they are. And when we get there, and when we really invest in doing that, not in the high-priced ivory tower elitists in Washington, D.C., but in guys like Ray. Ray, I'm pretty sure if you got a stipend, you would spend some time going into different parts of town and giving the message, enlightening folks. Give these things to the grassroots, and that's where I'm coming from. But we're getting out of time. I'm right at 4:00, Ray. So give me a quick closer.
Yeah, quick closer is you said something else that Ronald Reagan was probably a good actor, but
yes.
Back to the Future had a line that said it best when Doc said, Ronald Reagan, the actor, he's president. And now here's where we are in the country. Thank you.
There you go. Thank you, Ray. Thank you so kindly for calling in. We couldn't have this show without you. All right, folks, without all of our PDR Posse members. Thank you, guys. Anyway, folks, thank you guys for being here. My name is Egberto Willies. This is Politics Done Right. And you guys know how I end this baby. I am what? Out.
We spend a lot of time deconstructing the news, trying to parse it into a form that everybody can understand. We try to find those little nitpicks where it flies above the fray, etc. If you really like these videos that we do, I want to ask a big favor. Please go ahead. Number 1, subscribe to our channel. And number 2, please join if you can. Thank you so kindly for watching. Keep watching. Please remember to share. We must populate the entire internet with our progressive message, a message that we know is what most Americans say that they want. So help us, please join.